Hello, sir. My name is Nandu Thanneeru, number 2195182152, branch aeronautical. My concept video topic is distribution of shearing stress. Shear stress. The distribution of shearing stress on the cross section of the beam represents a parabolic curve where the maximum shearing stress occurs at the neutral axis of the beam. Shearing stress is defined as a type of stress that acts coplanar with the cross section of material. Shear stress exerts due to the shear force. They are pair of forcing acting on opposite sides of a body with with the same magnitude and opposite direction. Shear stress, a velocity vector quantity. Recall the formula used to calculate shear stresses due to bending. T equals to VQ by IT. We have just read the internal shear force V of the shear diagram. Explanation: maximum shear stress occurs at neutral axis and y equals to 0. Maximum node shear stress equals to 4 by 3 F by A. F by A is the average shear stress. Explanation: minimum shear stress occurs at neutral axis y equals to 0. Dot maximum dot shear stress 4 by 3 F of A. F of A is average shear stress. Diagram of shear stress. Shear stress is a deforming force acting per unit area and in the direction perpendicular to the axle of the member. The impact of your load when you step in a wooden stick causes two types of shear stresses. These are bending stress, which is parallel to the axle of the member, also called flexural stress. Shear stress, which acts in a direction perpendicular to the axle of the member. Bending stress, which is parallel to the axle of the member, also called flexural stress. Shear stress, which acts in a direction perpendicular to the axle of the member. Shear means to cut off when force is applied over a surface area of a rigid body. Force acting in a direction parallel to the surface, then this force acting in a direction parallel to the surface, then this force tries to cut off one part of the body from the other. As a result of this, the body gets deformed and hence strain is produced. Shear strain, the angular deflection of the body from its original position. Due to the rigidity of a body, it resists the deformation causes and a restoring force equal and opposite to the applied force is developed along the surface of the body as per Newton's third law of motion. This restoring force of the body tends to oppose the shearing effect of the applied force. Thus shear Stress is just an effect of shear strain. Shear force definition. It is a force that acts on a plane which passes through the body. The shear force are annihilate and separate the structure into two different parts is opposite direction. The shear force acts in a perpendicular direction to the larger part of the body. Shear force in a beam acts perpendicular to the longitudinal x-axis. The beam's ability to resist shear force is much more important as compared to its ability to resist axial force. Axial force acts parallel to the longitudinal axis of the beam. The given below figure represents a simple supported beam of length L under a uniform load Q, where Ri equals to is the reaction of the left end of the beam, R capital R smaller equals to is the reaction at at the right end of the beam. The shear force at the end points of the beam are equivalent to the four vertical forces of the support reaction. The shear force f of x at any other point x apart from the endpoints on the beam is calculated by using the shear force formula. F of x equals to Ri minus Qx equals to QL by 2 minus Qx equals to Q of L by 2 minus x, where x is the distance of the point from the left end of the beam. Q is the first moment of area in m into 3, m power 3. The shear stress the shear stress acts in a direction parallel to that the surface shear stress causes one object object to the slip over the other. It deforms the original shape of the object like converting a rectangular shaped object into a parallelogram. It is the ratio of the applied force of F to the cross-sectional area of A of the structure or beam. Shear stress acts in a direction which is perpendicular to the normal stress. The shear stress is denoted by tau. It is like T, where F equals to force acting on the structure, A equals to area of cross section of the body. Beams are also acted the upon by transverse force, which accounts for both bending moment m of x and shear force v of x expression for distribution of shear stress in a body. Expression of a distribution of shear stress in a body, tau xy equals to vq by it, where v equals to shear force in a cross section, q equals to first moment of area, moment I equals to moment of inertia of area, t equals to width of section. Shear stress units. The units of shear stress are similar to that any other type of stress. The unit of shear stress is n by m power 2 or pa or pascals in the SI system, and IBR by ft power 2. Shear stress is defined as a type of stress that acts coplanar with cross-sectional of material. Shear stress is arises due to the forces. They are pair of forces acting on opposite sides of a body with the same magnitude and opposite direction. Shear stress is a vector quantity. Shear stress is the deforming force acting per unit area and in the direction perpendicular to the axle of the member. The impact of your load when you step in a wooden stick causes two types of stresses. These are bending stress, which is parallel to the axle of the member, also called flexural stress, shear stress, which acts in a direction perpendicular to the axle of the membrane. Bending stress, which is parallel to the axle of the member, also called flexural stress. Shear stress, which acts in the direction perpendicular to the axle of the member. Due to the rigidity of the body, it resists the deformation caused, and a restoring force equal and opposite to the applied force is developed along the surface of the body as per Newton's third law of motion. These restoring forces act the forces of the body tends to the oppose the shearing effect effect of of the applied force. The shear stress is just effect of shear strain. It is a force that acts on a plane which passes through the body. The shear force are linked the separate the structure into two different parts or in opposite directions. That the shear force acts in a perpendicular directions to the larger part of the body. Shear stress units is the units of shear stress are similar to that any type of stress. The unit of shear stress is n by m power 2 or pascals in SI units system and IBF by FT in power 2. Thank you, sir.